Alright, welcome to our first attempt at flipping the classroom. Section 6.3, solving quadratics by factoring. I just want to remind you that if I move too fast, just hit pause, write it down, think about it, hit rewind if you need to a couple times, and move on. Solving the quadratics by factoring, I think you're going to have some fun with this. If you've ever played Angry Birds, it's exactly what you're doing. You're shooting something in a parabolic path and trying to hit a target. What we're going to be worried about is putting that on a graph and figuring out where our parabola crosses the x-axis. And that's where the solving comes into play. So let's dive into an example and see where we can get. So first thing, x squared minus 3x minus 28. We're supposed to solve by factoring. So let's try to find some factors. Remember, we take the first coefficient, which is 1, times whatever's at the end, and we multiply it together, put it off to the side. Now we're supposed to come up with two things that multiply to make negative 28, add to make negative 3. So hopefully you can come up with negative 7 and 4. Alright, so back over here, x minus 7 and x plus 4. Those are the two factors. You can always FOIL it back out to check, but this will work out. Now here's something most people forget. They've got so caught up on doing the factors, they forget the goal. The goal was to solve. And when we solve something, we have x equals. Another thing, we had an equals in the beginning, we got to have an equals in the end. So equals never goes away. If it starts out in the problem, finish the problem with the equals also. Alright, so two factors equal to 0. At this point, you want to take each factor, set it equal to 0 separately. I really didn't need to put those parentheses, it's kind of an optional thing. And you're one step away from being done. Here x equals 7, here x equals negative 4. So if we back up, talking about Angry Birds, those are our two different solutions. Maybe one's where the slingshot was, one's where it hit the ground. And you'll have to remind me to tell you about some college stories about the same stuff here with some water balloons tomorrow in class. Alright, on to another example. This one's going to be kind of rearranged, but same idea. If it's not equal to 0 already, then we need to make that happen. So we want to subtract 64 on both sides to make it equal to 64. I'm sorry, subtract 64 on both sides to make it equal to 0. Anytime you're solving these things, they have to be set equal to 0. Then you can do your factoring. So this is a special case, difference of squares. You want x minus 8, x plus 8. Square root of 64 is 8. Remember, minus and plus. And this is one of our special cases. Again, bring down the equals 0. Now you're one step away. X equals 8, x equals negative 8. Set each factor equal to 0, and you've got it. Okay. Just like any other equation, you can plug these back in for x, square them, they will equal 64. So always check your work still. Alright, next example. 4x squared minus 17x equals 4. So some different things going on. We've got a coefficient besides 1 out front. We don't have it equal to 0. Our pieces of our trinomial are kind of mixed up here. So first things first. Get this thing equal to 0. That's going to be adding 4. Again, don't forget an equal sign. Put your 0 in here after the equals. Alright, so hopefully we know how to deal with the 4 out front. 4 times 4 is going to be 16 off to the side here. Make our T-chart. Or the other way we've done it. Now this is optional. I'm going to say or in the middle here. Either way. You can make a big X. 16 on top. Alright, if you make the x, the middle term negative 17 goes on the bottom. We're trying to multiply to make 16 and add to make negative 17. Same idea. The things that go on the sides of the x go on the sides of the T-chart. You can use either method. Again, I don't care. It's whatever works for you. Alright, now with 16, or factors of 16, to make it add to a negative, both have to be negative. Don't forget the number in 1. In this case, negative 16 and negative 1 are going to work out. Alright. Now, if you went with the T-chart method, When you come back over here, you're going to have to do some grouping. So 4x squared comes down. Remember, the middle term gets broken up into your two factors, so minus 16x minus 1x, and then the plus 4 comes down. Okay, so let's draw some arrows in here so you're thinking about what went where. Okay, once you've done this, do some grouping. First two terms have 4 and an x in common, so x minus 4. On the next part, the next two terms, they have looks like a negative 1 in common. If we take that out, that leaves us with x plus 4 again. You can always distribute back out to check. When you do it this way, what's in parentheses has to be the same. So whatever's out front forms one factor. Whatever's in parentheses forms the other. Looks like I've already made a mistake. This should have been a minus right here. I told y'all to check and then I didn't. So negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. So x minus 4 would be our other factor. Looks like I also forgot to tell you to keep it equal to 0, so make sure we're bringing that down each time. Like I said, easy to forget, so just be careful, make sure you do it. We're almost done. Got two factors, set each one equal to 0, and that's going to do it. This one's pretty easy, it's 4. The other one might take a couple steps. It's going to come out to be 1/4. Okay. Now, let me get another color out here and talk about the x method. Where these two methods go different is in the step where we break it down and do groups. Now, had you chose to do the part with the x, you're going to divide both of these by that leading coefficient of 4. Okay, divide if you can, so this would have become negative 4. This one would have become, well, it wouldn't change, it would still be negative 1/4. So at this point, you kind of get to skip all of these steps if you do it this way. And you come down and you say, well, x minus 4 is a factor and x minus 1/4 is a factor. Keep it equal to 0 because it is an equation coming from this step right here. So this will be our order. This will be our third step. Of course, at that point, it's equal to 4. X equals 1/4, and now we're done. The x method, I think, is much quicker, but it's what you're comfortable with. You stick to what you know and what you like. All right, on to the next one. Say we got 4x squared equals 3x. So similar to the one we did not too long ago. Got to get it equal to 0. So 4x squared minus 3x equals 0. Okay. Don't forget to take out common factors. They do have an x in common. Not much else, but there's an x. Okay. That x out front is a factor if you need to put parentheses around it because it equals 0. Also 4x minus 3 equals 0. You're done at this point with the one factor. X equals 0, that's it. No more to it. 4x minus 3, you're going to plus 3 on both sides, and you're going to get 3/4. So there's another one that has a fraction for an answer. So something that's going to happen, fairly common. Just be ready for it. Okay? Now, like you always have found, once you learn how to do a process, you learn how to do it the opposite way. So you're going to see these directions. Write a quadratic equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c for the given roots. All right. Before you get too overwhelmed with that, I'm going to flash back to the very first example I gave you. All right. I want you to notice something here. We started out with a trinomial. You had a 1 technically out front, that was your A. You had a 3 right here, that's your B. You have a constant, that's where you get that letter C. Okay, so ax squared, your B in this case would be the minus 3, your constant would be the negative 28. So that's what they mean. When you see these directions, ax squared plus bx plus c, you just need to end up with the trinomial. So we could translate that off to the side, I guess. Answer should be trinomial. Okay? So that's what we're aiming for. Nothing but a trinomial will do. Yeah, a lot of people get kind of nervous when they see these. It shouldn't be anything to upset you. Just remember, you're going backwards now. You're starting with two answers. Because everything we've done so far, you got two answers. So we're starting with those two answers. We're working back to where we started, to a trinomial. Okay? Well, we talked about solutions. Everything we've done that's a solution is x equals. So let's start there. X equals 3. X equals -5. That's the first thing, first step you want to take. Now you need to turn both of those into factors, because before, each factor was set equal to 0. You can back up and watch another one if you need to, or look back at your notes you've taken. We're just going backwards through it. So x minus 3 equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. I just turned each equation into a factor set equal to 0. Remember, I've been making a big deal about setting it equal to 0, so we're going to do that again. Once you have two factors set equal to 0, put those two factors next to each other, and if you're paying attention to how it's shaping up, yeah, you're going to FOIL it out. If you were thinking FOIL, you're right on. So, first outside, inside, last. X squared. I always want to go inside first. Outside, 5x. Inside, minus 3x. And -15. If you ever catch me do it out of order, it still works. Don't worry. X squared plus 2x minus 15. And that's going to do it. Make sure it's still equal to 0. So that's what we meant. Start out with two solutions, work back to a trinomial. And just to prove that what I've been telling you is true, let's see if we can work backwards. Here's how you can check. All right, x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. All right, well, t-chart off to the side. Come up with two factors that make -15 that also add up to 2. I think that's going to have to be 5 and -3. So x plus 5. X minus 3, set equal to 0. Well, looks like you're going to have -5. Positive 3, that's where we started. We're done. Checks out. All right, last one. We'll start you off with a fraction this time. Same idea, same directions as before. If you need to flash back to that, you're writing a quadratic equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, which is just a fancy way to say the answer should be in a trinomial for the given roots. Well, these are roots, okay? Probably should have told you this before. Let me just put it up here because this word root, it's the same thing as a solution. It's also going to eventually be called a 0. And the big idea, it's the same thing as an x-intercept. I meant to tell you that right at the beginning, but better late than never, I guess. So a root is the same thing as a solution. That's the same thing as a 0. It's all the same thing as an x-intercept. You'll see all four of these used interchangeably throughout the SOL, throughout the year, throughout any math class you ever take. I'm not sure why they don't stick to one, but they use all four all over the place. So don't be surprised if you see any of these four just pop up at any time. I know we start out saying solution, and now the problems are saying root. Pretty soon they'll say zeros. It's the way it goes. All right, so you've got two solutions, or roots or zeros, or x-intercepts, however you want to think about it. So that means x equals each one of these. All right, so x equals -1/4, x equals 7. Fractions are kind of difficult, I know that. Let's try to get rid of it. Remember, the way to not have to deal with a fraction, multiply it by its denominator. Just follow the golden rule of algebra. Whatever you do on one side, do it to the other. That 4 and that 4 will cancel out. So now you have 4x equals -1. Of course, this one's still x equals 7. We need to make each one of these factors. If we make them into factors, we can FOIL them. That'll get us to a trinomial. Okay? So get everything on the same side. get it equal to 0. Right now you have two factors, 1 and 2. Now you've got to turn them into one equation. So both factors, because they're both equal to 0, can be multiplied together. They were separate, but since they're both equal to 0, they equal the same thing, put them together. Now last step, FOIL it out. 4x squared. All right, outside minus 28x. Inside's plus 1x. And at the end, a minus 7. Keep it equal to 0. Put together what you can, which, if you did it right, should be the middle two terms. That's pretty much always. So minus 27x minus 7, it equals 0. So you got it. All right, that'll wrap it up for our first class flip lesson. Hope you enjoyed it.